Hello there! Today we are going to learn about what is language from Teach Yourself Language by Jane Aitchinson. There are several topics that we are going to cover today: use of sound signals, arbitrariness, the need for learning, duality, displacement, creativity, patterning, structure dependence, human language versus animal communication, origin of language, and the role of language. This chapter outlines some important design features of human language and explores the extent to which they are found in animal communication. It also looks at the main purposes for which language is used. Linguistics can be defined as the systematic study of language, a discipline which describes language in all its aspects and formulates theories as to how it works. This book, in common with most linguistic books, uses the word to mean the specialized sound signaling system which seems to be genetically programmed to develop in humans. Humans can, of course, communicate in numerous other ways. They can wink, wave, smile, tap someone on the shoulder, and so on. It is also clear that humans can transfer language to various other media: written symbols, braille, sign language, and so on. However, language based on sound is more widespread and perhaps more basic. When animals communicate with one another, they may do so by a variety of means. Crabs, for example, communicate by waving their claws at one another, and bees have a complicated series of dances which signify the whereabouts of a source of nectar. But such methods are not as widespread as the use of sounds, which are employed by humans, grasshoppers, birds, dolphins, cows, monkeys, and many other species. So, our use of sound is in no way unique. There are several advantages of sound signals. First, it can be used in the dark. Second, it can be used at some distance. Third, it allows a wide variety of message to be sent. And last, leave the body free for other activities. Humans may have acquired language at a relatively late stage in their evolution. This is because all the organs used in speech have some more basic function, such as eating or breathing. There is often a recognizable link between the actual sign and the message an animal wishes to convey. An animal who wishes to warn off an opponent may simulate an attacking attitude. In human language, the reverse is true. In the great majority of cases, there is no link whatsoever between the signal and the message. The symbols used are arbitrary. Animals automatically know how to communicate without learning. In one experiment, a bird reared in a soundproof room away from other birds developed an abnormal type of song. Yet when the bird was exposed to only occasional tape recordings of other birds, its song developed normally. This is quite different from the long learning process needed to acquire human language, which is culturally transmitted. Human language is by no means totally conditioned by the environment, and there is almost certainly some type of innate predisposition towards language in a newborn child. But this latent potentiality can be activated only by long exposure to language, which requires careful learning. Animals which use vocal signals have a stock of basic sounds which vary according to species. Most animals can use each basic sound only once. That is, the number of messages an animal can send is restricted to the number of basic sounds, or occasionally the basic sounds plus a few simple combinations. Human language works rather differently. Each language has a stock of sound units or phonemes, which are similar in number to the basic sound possessed by animals. The average number is between 30 and 40. But each phoneme is normally meaningless in isolation. It becomes meaningful only when it is combined with other phonemes.
The topic is about displacement. Displacement in linguistics is about the capability of language to communicate about things that are not immediately present. The human language can communicate about things that are absent as easily as about things that are present. Unlike the human, most animals can communicate only about things in their environment. They have limits in what they can communicate about. So, this phenomenon is called displacement. Creativity. Humans can talk about anything and be understood by the others. Meanwhile, most animals are restricted in their language. For example, bees can communicate only about nectar. I want to explain about patterning. Many animal communication systems consist of a simple list of elements. The other side, human language, have a pattern and don't ring in a random way. Human language simply have a pattern which make human can speak properly in common. Structure dependence. Rules for word order depend on linguistic structure. Language operations are structure dependent. They depend on an understanding of the internal structure of a sentence, rather than on the number of elements involved.
The first topic is human language versus animal communication. Based on what Clara and Fira have explained, language is a pattern system of arbitrary sound signals characterized by structure dependence, creativity, displacement, duality, and cultural transmission. In animal communication, there is frequently a connection between the signals and the message sent, and the system is mainly genetically inbuilt. In human language, the symbols are mostly arbitrary, and the system has to be painstakingly transmitted from one generation to another. Duality and displacement are extremely rare in the animal world. No animal communication system has both these features. Creativity, the ability to produce novel utterances, seems not to be present in any natural communication system possessed by animals. So patterning and structure dependence may also be unique language features. All languages in the world are similar in their main design features. There is no evidence that any language is more primitive than any other. There are certainly primitive cultures. A primitive culture is reflected in the vocabulary of a language, which might lack words common in advanced societies. But even the most primitive tribes have language that as complex as English or Russian or Chinese. But one other similarity links human language with animal communication. It is predestined to emerge. Just as frogs inevitably croak and crows moo, so humans are prearranged for talking. Human language is innately guided. Human infants are not born speaking, but they know how to acquire any language to which they are exposed. They are drawn towards the noises coming out of human mouths, and they instinctively know how to analyze speech sounds. The example of animal case is bees. Bees are not born equipped with an inbuilt encyclopedia of flowers. Instead, they are pre-programmed to pay attention to important flower characteristics, especially scent. So they quickly learn how to recognize nectar-filled blooms and do not waste time flying to another thing or places. The next topic is origin of language. Language probably developed in East Africa around 100,000 years ago. three preconditions must have existed. First, humans had to view the world in certain common ways. They noticed objects and actions, for example. Second, they were able to produce a range of sounds. Animals were not able to do that. They only produce the calls that they are born with. For example, cows moo and dogs bark. These animals are unable to imitate new sounds. Third, they must have attained the naming insight. It is the realization that sound sequences can be symbols which stand for people and objects. These preconditions enabled early humans to build up a store of words. In all probability, rules came about among early humans in much the same way as new rules emerge in any language today. Briefly, preferences tend to become habits, and habits become rules. Original language preferences possibly reflected ways in which humans view the world. So preferences to habits to rules may be a natural progression. There is probably always flexibility, which is why all languages are not the same. The last topic is the role of language. Why did language begin? Social chit-chat may be the main reason why language emerged, but there are another roles of language. First, the use of language for persuading and influencing others has probably always been important. Yet information talking, like swapping news and conveying essential commands, is prominent primarily in public forms of language, less so in private conversations, which form the bulk of daily interactions. The second is, language can of course be used to communicate feelings and emotions. Humans, like other primates, can convey emotions via screams, grunts, sobs, gestures, and so on. The last is, humans may use language for purely aesthetic reasons. In writing poetry, for example, people manipulate words in the same way as they might model clay or paint a picture, or they may talk in order to release nervous tension, a function seen when people mutter to themselves in anger and frustration.